The framework of customer conversations has changed dramatically during the pandemic in terms of platform, value, and volume. Companies are expected to shape unique customer journeys by building engaging and hyper personalized conversational experiences as service evolves from a multi channel to an omni channel interaction. In the Indian context, we saw exponential growth coming in, especially for startups, a record setting figure of 11 new companies entering the billion-dollar unicorn club just in the April to June quarter this year. That takes the total tally to 53. Now, in that context, many of these are digital success stories that are transforming the very idea of CX and customer conversations in pursuit of building brand loyalty and driving growth. So, if you want to know how a business can make conversations an integral part of their customer engagement success story, or how silos across marketing, sales, and support can be removed to leverage data from consumer engagement into insights, or most importantly, how can all these efforts be scaled up to boost growth for organizations big or small, you have arrived at your destination. Welcome to this inaugural panel of the Mint CX Conversations. I'm your host, Gautam Srinivasan, and joining me on this panel titled CX Fueling the Growth Ambition are leaders from some of the most exciting companies across sectors who will share their insights on how new economy and high growth companies are channeling customer experience to power their growth ambitions. So let me quickly introduce them to you, starting with Manisha Khadge, who's the Director of Marketing for the APAC and MEA region at contract intelligence platform iCertis. Nitin Jain, co-founder at Off Business, which is a tech-enabled platform that facilitates raw material procurement and credit for SMEs. Gaurav Khare, Vice President for Operations Excellence and Customer Experience at Licious, which is a tech-powered farm-to-fork direct-to-consumer meat brand. Jatin Bhasin, Senior Vice President at Capital Float, a buy now, pay later and credit platform serving salaried and self-employed individuals. Akshay Singh, Chief Strategy Officer at tech and data science driven online automobile marketplace Droom, and Beeraj Sheth, CEO at Gupshup, which is a leading conversational messaging platform that serves small and large businesses in emerging markets. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this virtual discussion. We've got a galaxy of thought leaders here, so I look forward to an exciting conversation. So let's look at trends shaping up and then focus on specific use cases and solutions when it comes to leveraging technology for building transformative CX to power growth. So Manisha, we'll start with you. 2021 has so far seen the most funded quarter and the most number of unicorns added in a quarter. Now, experts see better prospects in the latter half as India opens up after a series of lockdowns and investor confidence strengthen for good quality digital businesses. So from a customer engagement and a customer conversation perspective, how are things going to change, especially as more nimble startups scale up with an increase in funding and a boom in online customers come in for a variety of services?
Thank you, Gautam. That's a great question. First of all, hello to everyone. It's amazing to be part of such an esteemed panel. So I think as far as the shift is concerned, I mean, everyone is aware that there is a massive shift, not just how you do business, but at every personal lives level. So I guess agility is probably the first paramount by all means. Anyone who was prepared with their business continuity and ability to scale up and pivot faster has seen enormous growth in such a short period of time. So, from a customer specific, I would say that a typical higher investment in people, process, technology has always been the basis as far as customer retention, adoption, upsell, and cross sell, all that is concerned. But when the world is working completely remotely and there is no physical interaction, I strongly feel from the trend standpoint, digital ease has become a key aspect. How convenient, faster, and hyper personalized you are has become extremely important. Especially how smartly are you using the social listening, which gives you a customer signals via their interaction on various digital platforms that could include social media, that could include your partners with whom you're closely working. So most of the companies are pretty much using everything which is digitally available and trying to utilize different ways to reach out. But the most key aspect which we have learned over a period of time is that are you using these signals and data points? Uh, are they well connected with each
Hmm.
other? In the sense that you need a unified view which gives you a clear picture of customer sentiments and requirements.
Absolutely.
Software and technology has been delivering what is it is expected to deliver, but human has to over deliver in these tough times. You have to show empathy more via actions and understanding what customer is going through, as you can't be physically present there. Little
Hmm.
things like iCertis offered a rapid 24/7 customer free of charge assistant to help companies so that they could focus and address the key commercial impacts by supporting their end users, versus
Hmm.
worrying about other things. That has miraculously worked well for iCertis in particularly. And the last piece, when it comes to trend, I feel that the virtual world has also expanded the access,
Hmm.
not just for the customer, but for the service and product providers. Now you are able to give that personalized touch, and how you're using that virtual accessibility. Your leadership management team sitting at one place is able to reach out to your customers, converse with them, versus earlier flying down and meeting them physically, which was not possible regularly, right? Customers mindset has changed. They are open to interact with you in virtual world because there is no other option available. You are able to leverage this accessibility by connecting the global customers with each other. There
Hmm.
was a time when they were not able to meet each other. Now they can connect on various platforms, they can talk to each other, they can learn best practices. So are you smartly utilizing this virtual world which has given you this expanded accessibility is also equally important, I feel, in my
It's a
opinion.
blank canvas. It's what you draw that matters. But important points raised, as you mentioned, agility, digital ease, and expanding access. Those are the trends which are shaping up. So let me get in Beerer to expand on that. These are the trends which Manisha sees. Let me get in Beerer's views. Beerer, amid this massive change, is technology transforming workflows which are tuned to create unique customer journeys, engage with them constantly and scale up for growth? Could you give us an insight into how the companies that Gupshup works with leverage conversational messaging platforms, for instance, to resolve consumer issues? Do you see more automation coming into the picture when it comes to this aspect of leveraging, say, messaging platforms to deal with such a volume of consumer issues which will come up, considering most of the things are going online right now? If you could unmute yourself, Birut, and answer that question, that would be fantastic.
Absolutely. I think clearly the pandemic has accelerated the shift from physical to digital, right? People are not going into malls and restaurants and bank branches. They are visiting digitally. When you look at digital, what are the options, right? You can do either websites or apps or something else. When you look at websites, generally that was designed for the large screen web, right? Desktop, laptops, and so on. So on those small screen mobile smartphones and so on, it doesn't render as easily or as well. When you look at apps, have, consumers have this mental barrier against downloads and so on, right? So you have millions of apps, but most of us have no more than a few dozen apps on our devices. So, it's expensive from a business standpoint. It's expensive to market apps or to stay on the device to retain active users and so on. Meanwhile, so the question then is, what are consumers using and how is a business to engage with these consumers, right? And we find that consumer usage of messaging apps is off the charts, right? Whether it's WhatsApp or Telegram, even SMS and so on, right? And that's proving to be messaging is becoming the new digital storefront. This is where consumers are looking for businesses. They're saying, look, can we chat with businesses as easily as we can chat with our friends? And therefore, it is incumbent on businesses to build these sort of conversational experiences to serve these users, to engage with them. And the good thing is now there's no more a app download barrier because consumers already have their messaging app, they're already using it, and businesses can just engage with them wherever they are quickly and easily. Whether it's sort of, there's all kinds of use cases, right? And very broadly we see sort of virtually every customer touch point across the entire customer life cycle is getting transformed, right? So whether it's on the front end with marketing, or in the middle with commerce and transactions, or on the back end with sale, with support or service, in each of these cases, on the marketing side, whether it's promotions, deals, offers, and lead generation, or in the commerce side, it's, shopping, payments, transactions, and such, or on the support side, troubleshooting, returns, refunds, things like that. Each of these sort of touch points are getting transformed by these conversational experiences. Businesses are creating these chatbots that serve these capabilities. So in general, we are seeing a huge trend and adoption of these things as businesses try to engage with customers through digital channels. Yeah.
All right. And when chatbots become smarter, how do you see that evolution happening? Because even chatbots are taking on a lot of responsibilities going from back end to front end. So in terms of conversational, the conversation with the customer, how are messaging platforms like yours going to make a difference for customers from here on?
Oh, absolutely. I think the great thing is the technology around even advanced AI or natural language processing has become good enough that chatbots can understand user queries that are phrased in natural language and be able to respond to it intelligently, right? So, I mean, and this could be either through text or through voice. For example, anybody who's used Amazon Alexa or Google Assistant already knows how much better they've gotten over the years. And I think you're seeing the same with the text-based sort of chatbot experiences as well. So, most of us would have used it. Either you look at inside, sometimes you even see it within banking apps, or, a lot of these people are building these experiences on WhatsApp, which is very popular now. And then even with SMS, where today you just receive these one-way notifications, most of us do on our devices, but you can embed sort of conversational experiences even in the SMS capability. So I think these chatbots are, most businesses start with one or two use cases and incrementally add a lot more use cases as it develops, right? It does take time to get it right and to build it properly, so you have to do it carefully, but we are seeing this adoption grow very rapidly.
Well, we truly are in the age of digital assistants, and I think we are evolving from Alexa to Jarvis, if I could use an Iron Man reference, in terms of how assistants themselves, digital assistants themselves, are becoming much, much more smarter in terms of responsibilities that they carry out for the customers that they serve. Let me bring in Nitin at this point. Nitin, as the data boom in India redefines consumer needs and demands, CX is central to the growth ambitions of these unicorns and soonicorns that I mentioned earlier. So how can organizations use tech as an enabler, in your opinion, to meet the changing demands of the modern day consumer?
Yeah, so, I will answer this question from the perspective the SMEs, because those are the guys that we are working with. So they are our consumers essentially. So, if you look at the digital transformation that was taking place in India in the 2010s, till now, it was mainly on the consumer side. So it was mainly on the B2C side. But on the B2B side, it was slightly slower. Like, for example, the SMEs, if they wanted to meet, they would actually call you to their office, and these were far-flung places. So they would not be available for a video call or a Zoom call, or they didn't even know about Zoom for that matter, right? And all the documents, etc., that we collected for financial due diligence were all offline. Right, so all of these were averse to technology in some sense. But what the pandemic has done is brought about it's a strong change, a tectonic shift in terms of how they perceive technology, and they know that if they do not take or they do not embrace technology, they are going to be wiped out by the new emergents or the better companies that are going to take their place, right? So technology in that particular sense, the pandemic in that particular sense has brought about a significant digital shift in the way the SMEs think about business, right? And the SMEs basically earlier used to maintain all these registers, etc. They were not even putting things on tally. They were doing things offline. But now the thinking has changed drastically. I mean, within 1 year, we've seen our customers basically refuse physical meetings. They only want Zoom meetings, and they've sort of already embraced the fact that they have to get all the documentation done online with as little touch points as possible. So that's actually made our life a lot more easier, right? In the B2B world, for the first 3 years that we operated, it was very difficult for us to convince the customers to embrace technology. So a lot of things were offline, but I'm glad that during the pandemic, this shift has taken place where people have realized that if they don't embrace this particular aspect, they will be left far behind. So I'm
But
very,
is it
very
tougher
happy
for a B2B, B2C perspective in terms of this technological embrace that you're talking about? From a B2B, B2C perspective, do you see B2C is much, much more, direct consumer is much, much more welcoming to technological sort of pathways with companies that they interacted versus a B2B framework?
Oh, absolutely. B2C will always remain ahead of the curve in terms of technological adoption. But B2B now has realized that if they do not adopt this particular technology shift that is taking place, or embracement of technology, they will be left far behind, and people other parts of the world will actually come and capture whatever they're trying to build. So I think B2C, yes, it'll stay far ahead of the curve, but B2B is slowly catching up, and that's very visible in the past 6 to 12 months that we've seen. Yeah, so I believe that B2C will always remain far ahead of the curve.
So that's one of the headlines right there, that B2B is catching up faster right now in terms of embracing conversations with each other versus, say, a B2C when it comes to technological adoption, which enables that conversation to happen. Let's also look at customer trust, and I'll bring in Gaurav for this. Talking about building customer trust, as people say, move towards a healthier lifestyle. I'll use your company's example and ditch neighborhood meat shops for more hygienic forms of food consumption. Licious recorded a jump, I believe, of over 300% in revenues, and did more revenues in 6 months than what it did in 5 years. So in this incredible growth story, building customer trust for quality of branded meat and ensuring a seamless experience, that was imperative. So I want to understand from you, how did Licious manage to build that engagement with customers to change perception itself of a product category? And what portion of your user experiences, if you could expand on the answer, are delivered, say, through the web versus app versus messaging, as Birat was mentioning earlier? Do you see that changing over time as well?
Yeah, sure. So a couple of things here, right? So I think Manisha started her talk with this, that whichever company was agile and ready, just grabbed this opportunity, right? So we happen to be one of them. And I would attribute this readiness to a long-term thinking and a customer-centric thinking, which was embedded in companies really right from the start, right? So there are a lot of decisions which were taken in last 5 years, which helped us, grow the way you described in last 18 months. And let me just expand that 6 months to 18 months. Then this growth looks like 7x, right? Not just 3x. So last February and this August is like 2 different companies altogether. So what I believe is Licious at its root, right, identified a core customer problem and prioritize solving that over building anything else, right? So Abhay, one of our founders, keeps mentioning this as a example, right? They both Abhay and Vivek were in initial days of Licious. They were shadowing some customers who buy from meat shops, and they saw one lady who went to a Golgappa shop and asked that bhaiya to wear gloves and then serve the Golgappa. And in 5 minutes, she was in a meat shop, and I don't want to describe how that meat shop looked, and was fairly comfortable, buying that from there, right? So, and this is something they felt that people don't even know what can be available, right? So there, in our sector, our job has to be, educate as well, or it was a larger job for the marketing team than to actually grow, right? The more we educate people, the more we grow. So everything was sort of built with, keeping those customer issues at center, and decisions were taken. As a result, we had 100% of our delivery feed in-house. All our delivery boys are employees who actually own stock options of the company, right? Because we believe that they are the face of the company. Yes, this is the only human the customer is going to see, right? The product quality was paramount and has always been paramount, right? Decisions like that, which so this attitude actually led us to formulate the strategy of farm to fork, because it was a lot of investors actually discouraged the founders, like, why farm to fork, right? You can just concentrate on product, like, why do you go all out and all that? But to solve that problem, this was needed, and all those decisions like just came together and helped us being agile, having that spare muscle available with us when this demand just came, right? And that just helped. While we were going through this fast growth, right? So we all knew these customers are coming because they don't have a option right now, right? This is the digital shift with Manisha, Nitin, everyone is talking about, right? This is sort of forced shift. Licious did not do anything. They just came along, right? So we knew our strength would be to retain them. And if we are able to retain them is when we are successful, right? So
how are you doing that in terms of retaining, in terms of your customer conversations? Where is it happening mostly? Web or app or messaging? Where is that customer experience coming from? And do you see that changing over time?
Yeah, so absolutely, right? So it is, we are an app-based company. Most of our traffic is app. In fact, 60% of our orders are through app, and it is growing much faster than the web. There is some behavior where a new customer tries us out in a web. If he or she finds us good, shifts to app. So most of our engagement with the customer is with app. But I also want to say that we are thinking more than digital in terms of connecting with the customer, and that might be very peculiar to our sector, because that is sort of needed. If we just restrict ourselves to WhatsApp conversation or app or just these platforms, I don't think we would be able to retain customers, and they would not realize the value which Licious is actually offering. So our CX strategy is more than digital, and was always like that and continues to be like that, right? With
say the face hunt initiative which you had, is that part of what you're talking about when you say that in terms of customer conversations and interactions, you want to do more rather than just a digital face, but you also want to, like, face hunt was an example where your customers, I believe the faces were on the product, so that itself builds a sort of a bond with the product that you're servicing. So such kind of measures is what you're talking about, where you want to go beyond the remit of what is offered.
Absolutely. That's just one example. We also, connect with customers regularly, which is offline connect. We walk into customers' houses, have a conversation with them. Things like that. They are, of course, difficult to scale. And that's where technology comes in, but they have absolutely necessary part to play and should not be foregone while you expand on digital measures, is what I'm trying to say.
Have a holistic point of view when it comes to managing your conversation with customers. All right, but we've all been talking about growth and managing exponential growth, and at this point I'll bring in Jatin to talk about managing exponential growth and the challenges, more importantly, that come with it. So for example, in a span of 7 months starting March 2020, I believe, Capital float finance customer purchases, I believe, were around 400 crores and witnessed a 350% growth in the BNPL customer base. So the overall market pie itself expanded, and you've seen a surge in demand, especially for small ticket digital credit facilities. So how did you deal with this sudden growth in traffic? I read that Capital Float is currently adding about 1.5 lakh new customers per month and expects to double its customer base by the end of the year. So all this growth, how does the management happen? And more importantly, how does the management of the customer conversation happen?
Right. Okay, first of all, great question. And thanks for this. It's nice to be part of this amazing panel. Talking about growth, right? Before we get into growth, let's talk about CX, the main topic, and that would lead to the main question. I think customer experience has become hygiene in startups, even in large organizations. People don't discuss that. Yeah, that the CX has to be good. That point, like people are beyond that, right? So every day, first thing in the morning, I don't know if it's good or bad. First thing I check out is like a dashboard with like all deep insights of the business, and now that I look at every day, so I understand when there is an issue which has happened or not happened, and at second decimal places or percentage, the issues sometimes get lost, because of which we do calling, and we have like a customer VOC, which we review on a weekly basis, and try to understand that where the customer is facing. One, you can get that data quantitatively, but qualitative data we do calling ourselves, like all product team, some people from the tech team, up till the founders, get on these calls and try to understand where is that pain point. And we are in the business of buy now pay later lending, where the traditional lending per se, if you see, the CX was extremely poor, right? Like back in the day, people used to go walking into a branch and talk to a branch manager, fill up forms. After a month, your loan gets approved, right? The point which I said, CX is hygiene, from a consumer mindset also, who have been now used to use apps like WhatsApp, Facebook, and so on, would also expect the CX of taking something on credit to be at par with the payment instrument, and in certain cases better, right? So the bar which we have set for ourselves is that. Now, the entire CX or growth for us, at least, cannot work without tech working, right? So, and when we say technology is nothing but giving scientific solutions, right? Not necessarily making something digital, right? So while we are into this business where we have to make it like 100% digital flow, the bar which we set for ourselves, that if you were to break our flows into different journeys, are onboarding, where essentially we are the only player in the country where you can sign up for credit at checkout, right? So like there are players where, like for a credit card, essentially you have to apply for it first. Once you get the credit card, then you can use it for multiple transactions. But with only 25 million people having that credit card out of 1.3 billion population, there is like a huge population out there who are still extremely underserved. And we believe, our thesis is that people make purchase decision first and then think of credit option. Not that, okay, let me take a loan and I'll figure out what to do with that, right? So the right point for us to be part of is at checkout. And when we are at checkout, it is the most, I would say, vulnerable, or I would say the for the e-com side or anybody, they are the most careful for a customer drop, because customers done everything and now they just don't want the customer to drop there. And at that point, we pitch a customer that, hey, why don't you want to break it into 3 or 4 installments using our buy now pay later product, right? And at that point, the technology has to speak. We work with very, very large e-com players, and during sale events, we reach around 100 TPS, which is 100 transactions per second. Like 100 people have taken an instant loan in 1 second. So that level, we have to scale our technology. We have a dedicated DevOps team who look for that. Talking about growth from here, I think in initial stage of while designing product, right, the team should, I feel, build things which should not scale. Like Brian Chesky keeps saying from Airbnb that build stuff which don't scale, because that is the right time to find the product market fit. Do everything, whatever it takes to find that exact problem of that TG which you are going after. once, like 1 year or 6 months, whatever that time frame you're defined for yourself, it should be all about scale. That how this entire solution, what we have built, and which are stuff which is non-scalable, try to convert those processes into that. For example, in our case, the entire KYC experience from day one, we were aware that it has to be digital. While COVID was not there, our entire KYC at Capital Float was always digital. So the modules or the building blocks of lending much before COVID were built in a way which helped us immensely. When people were moving into digital journeys, we were already there, and which helped us a lot to not break when we saw that exponential growth. And COVID for us has been from a business standpoint, while it is the most unfortunate event in history of mankind, but from a business standpoint, it has helped us a lot in terms of controlling our risk. People try to move there. There's a tailwind that people are moving to more and more digital journeys, and we are already there. So being there, right place at right time. Happy to.
All right. And currently, we say how our customer conversations changing, because as we mentioned, Licious changed the game when it came to, say, the approach of Meet. For you, the idea of credit itself, you made it more accessible. So currently, how are customer conversations evolving as you have had success in terms of changing the mindset of the customer to approach credit in a much, much more open manner?
Correct. So for us, if you see, we have two customers. One is the merchant or the online website or the offline person who is essentially giving the service or the product, and second is the end consumer who is buying that on credit. Right now, I think people have started to realize that credit is something which is needed. And now let me talk about the merchant first. So with credit, essentially, they are able to sell a higher AOV product, right? So one is increasing the average order value, and second is improving their conversion. So stuff which don't sell because now that there is a credit available right there. From a consumer standpoint, for a low ticket purchase where buy now pay later come in, it has to be extremely convenient. So if you see, we are deeply integrated into the payment solutions, because of which we have a 99.99% success rate. All other payment instruments typically are at like a 70 to 80% success rate, where the merchants don't want a customer to drop. So the solution have to be built in such a way that user does not get dropped. That is from their side. For the consumer, first was the convenience that there has to be 2FA on when we are not able to figure out if that person is that person, right? But in other areas where we have identified already, the journey can be truly one place, sort of an experience which can be given, which I have already given to the customer. Second is pricing. When the customer is only coming for convenience, there has to be no cost EMI options. When no cost EMI, essentially, if anybody understands, like all of us here in this panel would understand concept of NPUs and so on. If you're making a purchase which is available on no cost EMI, why not? Like you should actually take it and use your funds for other better prices. The second comes the affordability, which in India, all the buy now pay later companies in US are typically solving like 80-90% use case. They are solving only the convenience. In India, affordability is still a big play, right? So if you walk into a store now to buy a Nike shoe, and the shopkeeper shows you a 10,000 rupee shoe, and you see another pair of shoe for 15,000, which you feel is going to last longer or going to help you run better or whatever, which is also available on a 3-month no cost EMI, and you can pay just $5,000 a month. You buy that. It's a better decision to do.
Absolutely. New options, new decisions, new solutions. Well, that's the power of a transformative CX. And I'll expand the conversation to include Akshay. Akshay, when we look at the key elements that are involved in transformative CX, especially from a customer conversation perspective, I'd like to hear the Droom story. Droom claims that 80% market share of automobile transactions online are theirs, and calls itself India's most trusted motor place. So take us through that journey of building trust and the pit stops that come with it, and also tell us how you dealt with roadblocks such as driving downloads and retaining active users for, say, mobile apps.
Sure, Gautam, and thanks for inviting me to this panel. Right. So I'll share a little bit about the Droom story from a customer perspective. Right. So Droom is the largest online automobile marketplace in India. So what we are trying to do is move the entire process of buying a used vehicle online so that you never have to step outside your home, and the entire journey can be done online using either our mobile app or our websites, right? And now, an automobile is a large ticket item, right? So the consumer behavior and the kind of questions that a potential consumer has, they are very different from, let's say, someone buying a T-shirt online or a book or shoes online, right? And the other challenge that the auto industry has is it's inherently a low trust market, right? Especially in the used vehicle space, where if I'm a consumer, I don't know whether the seller can be trusted. I don't know whether I'm paying the right price for the vehicle. I don't know if the vehicle is in the right condition or if there is something wrong with the engine or the transmission or something else. In fact, I don't even know if it's a stolen vehicle or it has, an outstanding loan against it, which I'll be on the hook for after completing the purchase. So, over our last 7 years, what Droom has been focused on is trying to address all of these consumer trust-related issues, right? So we have the core marketplace, which facilitates the transaction, but more importantly, we have built an ecosystem of products which address these trust-related issues for the customer. For example, we have Orange Book Value, which is our valuation engine, right? Where if you are a potential customer in Delhi who's looking for a four-wheeler, a used four-wheeler, you can go to OBV or look at the OBV app and get a very fair idea of what the right price for a typical vehicle should be. So at least it gives you some idea in terms of whether the price that is being quoted is right or you need to negotiate harder. Similarly, another service that we have built is our eco inspection service. So this is a third-party, independent, unbiased inspection service that anyone can take advantage of when they are trying to buy a vehicle, right? And all of the vehicles that are bought on Droom undergo this eco inspection. Third product that we have built in this trust ecosystem is Droom History, which tries to aggregate information from all the different RTOs in the country, from various police websites, and tells the customer that if there are any outstanding fines on the vehicle, or how many owners have been for the vehicle, is it still under a loan, right? So we realize that an automobile is a difficult category to move completely online, and the way we have been trying to solve it is, of course, there is a marketplace in the middle which is connecting the buyers with the sellers and dealers on the platform. But there is this ecosystem of services which answers the question around, are you paying the right price? Is the vehicle in the right condition? Is there anything else that the customer needs to be aware of? And obviously, all the sellers on the platform, they also go through an onboarding process, and they have ratings and reviews, so that that you're buying from a verified seller, and that seller is on the hook in case something goes wrong. One more thing, just to complete the cycle that we have done is it's still a used product, right? And in a used product, the way we talk about it, each product is a different SKU, or stock keeping unit, right? So to give the final level of trust and comfort, any vehicle that is bought on the platform has a 6-month buyer surety warranty, right? So that if anything goes wrong, which was not uncovered in the initial inspection, it's covered for up to a value of 50 lakh rupees, right? So that gives a final level of trust for the consumer to make the purchase online, right?
So it's not just that during the buying process that you're there, but your conversation with the customer continues even post that, say around a certain duration, where you maintain a sort of a support service for your customer. And in fact, that brings me to the question on, is that how you are retaining customers? Because at the end of the day, I buy a car, I am done, right? That's it. There's not going to be much of a chance in terms of engagement after that, unless there are other services offered which are relevant to that buying experience, which keeps the conversation going between the brand and the customer. So what's your response to that in terms of retaining, say, users for whether your website or mobile apps? How do you manage to do that?
Right. No, that's a very good observation. And yes, you hit the nail on the head, right? An automobile is not a category where you make multiple purchases in a month, right? Typically, if you're buying a two-wheeler or a four-wheeler, you're not going to replace it for the next couple of a few quarters or more. More generally, for a couple of years. Having said that, there are different layers that we have built to increase the lifetime value of a customer. One, India is a developing economy. All the consumers are aspiring. So one trend that we have clearly seen is, people who have bought two-wheelers in the past, graduating and buying a four-wheeler. People who have bought an entry-level four-wheeler, buying a larger four-wheeler in a couple of years, right? And in our data, we have seen that even though we are a fairly young company, in the most recent year, about 12 to 18% of our customers, of our vehicle customers were repeat. So the cohort is building up and is contributing to the lifetime value of the customer. The second thing which you hinted at is the services angle, right? So when it comes to auto, having the ability to attach a loan is very important because it also helps increase the conversion on the platform. Similarly, other services like insurance or extended warranty, roadside assistance, all of these having a regular touch points with the customer and at the right point of time, just maybe a few weeks before the insurance is about to expire. It's very important in terms of retaining that customer over a long period of time and also increasing customer lifetime value. So that's how we are addressing that issue.
All right. So we've heard some great lessons in excellence from, say, Icertis, Licious, Capital, Float, Off Business, and Room as to how they're managing customer conversations. So, Beerad, let me bring you in at this point in time to sort of distill the key ingredients that go into building engaging conversational experiences. You've heard our panelists describe their experience. In your experience, how can, say, small and large companies better understand and engage with their customers with a pull rather than a push approach? And what are the key elements which are going to be involved?
Sure. No, I think we heard some very interesting insights in each of these businesses, right? Whether it's buying meats or buying a car or getting the buy now, pay later sort of options and so on, right? So each of these companies have put in a lot of thought in just figuring out how to remove all the friction points, how to sort of make it scalable, right? But then the question is, okay, how do you actually scale, right? How do you go from 1 to 10 to 1 million customers and beyond? And all of, many of these companies have gotten well funded. Well, as everybody knows, the challenge with more funding is there's higher expectations, and now you have to accelerate growth and scale it up, right? So removing the friction points, not just from the business model itself, but also from the growth strategy is where, at least what we've found many other companies doing is sort of leveraging, going beyond the app, right? Because you build all these app experiences, but what about somebody who's just a one-time user, who's a casual user, who's not sure yet whether they want to commit to, buying an app feels like, I don't know, getting married or something, right? A big commitment, right? They're not sure yet. Maybe they want to buy meat one time. Maybe they want to see the Orange Book value one time. Maybe they want to just try one small loan and then see the experience. If it's really no cost EMI or there's some hidden cost and so on, right? So in all of these things, you have casual buyers. And if you think of it as top of the funnel, right, the first purchase is always tricky. And if you can make it simpler, easier, and leverage these experiences, right? So make it simpler through messaging, through WhatsApp, through SMS, where people can use all of these without sort of fully committing to having a long-term relationship and so on, right? I'll use the analogy of China, where, for example, WeChat, right, is the dominant messaging app there, kind of like WhatsApp. But it also enables businesses to build what are called mini programs, right? And these are embedded inside the messaging app so that they are just lightweight, quick, easy, transient experiences. They're ideal for that. Now, many businesses, China has a thriving app ecosystem, and apps tend to be monolithic, feature rich with lots of capabilities. But many times consumers are just trying to, they don't need all the features. Like in a banking app, yeah, I can do a dozen transactions, but if I'm just trying to pay my electric bill, I just want to do that one thing. I don't want to, if anything, all those extra features sort of drag you down, right? So how do you disaggregate sort of the app experience? How do you provide each one of these in a separate way, in a simpler, transient, one time, one click experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just basically making it easier, simpler, more accessible, right? Or having an ongoing relationship. Now, let's say collecting EMIs, right? It's not something that somebody does every day or 5 times a day. This happens once a month, right? If it's once a month, people are busy, with their lives and so on, they may forget. But if they just get a notification reminder with a one-click payment, okay, that gets done, right? Or if there's a customer feedback survey with one click, you can just literally pick the number of stars that you like the service or not, right? So just the simple point I'm making is, this idea of creating one-click experiences for the objective at hand, right, in the moment right now. And I think that's where, through WhatsApp, through SMS, through conversational messaging, it really makes the growth scalable as well, right? Actually scaling up user experiences and expanding rapidly. Yeah.
Absolutely. But as the channels grow, so do the challenges. So I want to have a rapid fire round with most of the speakers here in terms of how they address the challenges. So Gaurav, let me bring you in. Customer feedback plays a very important role when it comes to both the quality of products and the shape, form, and time frame in which they are delivered. So how does Licious leverage tools of communications and feedback, most importantly, to ensure the highest levels of quality in their service? Do you use, say, SMS and WhatsApp for user notifications and interactions? And if you do that, to what extent do you do it?
Yeah, so we try to use all possible means to get feedback at every touch point which customer has. And we have made that a point that there is an opportunity for customer to tell us what they feel. And that happens through the product rating which they give us, the delivery rating which they give us, the app store ratings, Play Store ratings. We send surveys out on messages, WhatsApp. In fact, we are speaking to Birut's team to actually integrate better and leverage what Gupshup does. And then there is, if they contact us, there is a CSAT score. So every possible avenue, right? So I just want to add something here, which I think Jatin was also saying. The trick lies, right? What do you do with this now, right? Now that you've heard so much, like what do you do with that data? Is where the trick lies. And if you're reducing it to one number and presenting it, say 1.4% of our customers called us to know where their order is, I think it is just you just killed that feedback.
Absolutely. It's the context of the data which matters, because we all might be engaged in mining the data, but it's what's the insight that data provides. That's going to be important in the context of providing or improving customer conversations. That's a fair point. From there, let's move on from customer feedback. Let's move on to customer queries. And Akshay, I'll bring you in for this. The sudden shift to online platforms from traditional business models caused by the COVID-19 pandemic brought with it a disruption in supply chains itself. So as a result, there was a sudden surge in customer queries and a need for more efficient customer engagement and communication models. So how did your business cope with this surge?
Great question, Gautam. So, one of the challenges that we faced just after the lockdown opened was a supply crunch. So there was a huge demand, but not enough vehicles available to fulfill those demands. So what we did was, almost a quantum shift in terms of the user experience on the platform, where, let's say, moving from a Flipkart or Amazon kind of a classic e-commerce model, we moved more to a matching kind of an model, more like, let's say, a Tinder or a shadi.com or a jivansathi.com, because what that gave was, it gave all the supply that was available on the platform more opportunity to become visible to the customer. It also gave the customer a better user experience, because they were able to give us their exact inputs in terms of what they are looking for, and then started getting the supply matching according to their requirements. So overall, because of this change in almost the user journey, we saw a huge jump in terms of user engagement on the platform, both from a customer side as well as our dealer side.
All right, let's look at another challenge, which is data protection, and I'll bring in Manisha for this. From the perspective of data security and privacy, especially in the context of customer conversations. Manisha, how can companies push the boundaries of growth and scale up their data protection measures seamlessly, which are, say, in compliance with local and global standards and transparent to the customer? So Icertis, I believe, has redefined what's possible with contract lifecycle management by developing an AI-powered contract intelligence platform. So how did it build consumer data protection measures into its platform in its engagement with customers?
That's a good question, and I can give you my perspective, which is more of a business perspective versus the tech side. But I would say that when it comes to data privacy, security, I think trust and transparency, these are the two key factors which play a very critical role. And when it comes to contracts, I would say that if your system shows what it buys, what it sells, how it runs, the complete visibility of the critical business data, so that our customer can gain that transparency, which is needed to move faster and deliver on their commitments. So from tech side, I would say that we kind of use all the best practices from compliance and security aspect, whether it is customer being the data controller, data transfer uses the TLS, and Icertis, I think, is one of the first provider who supports this bring your own key, so customer can bring their own key to encrypt their data, and which kind of ensures that no one outside their organization has the access to their data. I would say our move from a contract management to contract intelligence is the emphasis of what makes us stand out and unique. The actual application of technologies like AI, which no longer remained a buzzword with, for past 1.5 years after the pandemic is hit. It has become an integral part, but it was always an integral part of our platform. This is what has turned out even more critical in these tough times, when CLM has become must have from good to have. And it's not Icertis which is saying that, it's the Gartners and Forresters of the world who are saying that. And it is them who are placing Icertis at the top in their quadrant when it comes to contract lifecycle management world. So we have seen 40% of ICI deployed customers expand platform use in H1 2021. Our sales cycle has been drastically shortened over this period of time. So I would say when it comes to customer experience, Gautam, I would say that it is built on three foundational things. One, it's trust, transparency, and transformation.
All right. Trust, transparency, and transformation. That's the mantra for success here. But dialing the conversation back to insight, Jatin, tell us more about how Capital Float built its analytics capabilities to enable personalized service recommendations and identify cross-selling and upselling opportunities. In your experience, I want to understand what works and what doesn't when it comes to harnessing data from customer conversations to mine the right kind of consumer insights, which in turn improves CX and fuels growth.
There are two parts to it. Let me answer the second part first. In terms of customer communication, I would agree with Gaurav. So we do everything, right? So we try to reach out via SMSs, WhatsApp, calling, IVR, and so on. Primarily because collection of the lending has one other part to it, is also collection. One is like giving money and then we have to get it back also. For that we reach out, but we are extremely mindful of how to do that. So for that, we have created a man-machine sort of model where we have created a delinquency prediction model where we predict that what are the chances, who is a high-risk customer, who is a low-risk customer. For low-risk customer, we reach out much less, and because the customer automatically they pay by themselves. And in case of we tag a customer as high risk, we just increase the frequency of communication. Other than that, we have created dashboards and places for a customer to come in, and we have trained the customers for any sort of query they would have. They can always come and see these dashboards and check out and make repayments and so on, right? The most important use. In terms of insights, it's a very long topic. I'd say, but
just a highlight on what works and what doesn't.
I feel the gist which can be taken away is that from your tech product, whosoever a company is hiring, we have to hire extremely data-driven people who take decision basis data. And when I say taking decision, is most importantly what are they seeking? So what is the question you are seeking? Data will be figured out. Most of the time, it happens the other way around. People spend a lot more time looking at data, but they don't know what are they looking at and what are they trying to seek. If that is quite clear, I think then first we have to be sure that what insight are you seeking. That is one part of it. Accidentally, you're going to identify something hardly ever happens. So create those hypotheses. What are you trying to see? Look at those data. In terms of tools, there are plenty available for every single thing, and we can talk about it later.
Absolutely. Well, as they say, questions light the spark, answers feed the flame. So it's about the question which gives rise to something interesting which data presents to a company, which it could use to service customers better or maybe even develop new revenue models. And speaking of that, Nitin, I want to bring you in. Let's extend that point to talk about unlocking value for different customers with varied expectations. What's the off-business perspective on tuning customer conversations to deliver value and identifying the right kind of customer, especially, as the lending vertical of business manages to keep NPAs at less than 1%, I believe, with a loan book that has grown 80% annually. So that's not a feat which should be underestimated. So how did you make that happen?
Yeah, so one important thing that we did was that we increased multiple touch points in the customer journey, right? So if you look at a typical SME, it takes raw material, it manufactures the raw material, then it sells it to someone, right? So what we try to do, and it takes finance in the middle as well, right, as part of the process. Whether it takes finance from the banks or whether it takes finance from the NBFCs or its creditors, that's part of the process. So we said that in order to keep our NPAs low, we need to have multiple touch points with the customer, right? So we can't just be financing. We can't just be the raw material supplier. We can't just be doing only one thing. So what we did for the customer was that we included technology where he was able to source new orders for his production. We were able to sell his goods as well. We were able to do procurement for him as well. And we were able to, do the lending bit where we are giving him working capital for his working capital needs. So we had 4 touch points for the customer, right? So we were getting him orders. He was able to source orders through a bid assist platform that aggregates tenders. So ultimately, all these 4 touch points really helped get our NPS down because he started seeing us as his preferred vendor, right? So even when he was in stress, or even when the customer was in stress, the customer used to prioritize us in terms of repayments, etc., because we were bringing in so much value, and we were bringing in his entire chain. We were bringing him value on each and every occasion, right? So that was the main thing that we focused on. So we didn't want to focus on only one particular aspect. So that was something that we realized quite early on in our journey, and we said that we have to be a one-stack solution or a full stack solution for the entire customer experience, and that actually increases the trust. That trust, you were talking about how do you increase customer trust, or what is the way to do that? This is one of the way that we figured out we can definitely do.
All right. We're almost out of time. So let me get in Viru to give a summary statement on what's the way forward for customer conversations and how he sees technology leveling the playing field in this context for big and small companies. So Viru, bring it all together, all the points that we discussed. What's the way forward here? And more importantly, how is the playing field going to be leveled? from a CX
Yeah.
perspective?
Now, I think just picking on a few of the points mentioned, right? You need to engage the customer more across multiple touch points, right? Which Off Business said, or even Licious and others have been doing that. And so how do you engage the customer more without being annoying, right? You need to be efficient, you need to be quick in and out, because they have a busy life, they're doing a lot of other things as well. And I think that's where, many of the panelists also spoke about using whatever channels are available, right? SMS, WhatsApp, call, IVR, and so on. So the point is, whatever is the easiest way to connect or engage with the customer in a non-intrusive way, depending on their context and their situation, you want to do it. And you want to do it in the app, but outside the app, even when they're running around busy, and so on. So I think really sort of simplifying the customer experience, increasing the number of touch points, building trust, being available and accessible as a business and brand. I think all of these things drive customer engagement, right? And as everybody here has sort of said, customer engagement is the key. If you get that right, if customers love you, if they trust you, if they engage with you more, then it drives all the good metrics, right? Revenues and retention and low NPAs and things like that. So really, I think we're seeing this increasingly in this pandemic, post-pandemic world. I mean, people have just accelerated digital transformations, converted everything offline or web or app-based, made it available seamlessly across an omni-channel experience. So I think that's really the potential, the opportunity, and drives high growth. And you're seeing a lot of these high growth businesses here. So very excited about where it all leads.
All right, optimistic about the future. And I guess when conversations become connections, that's where the magic happens. And you've seen how technology can transform customer experience to fuel growth ambitions of companies. You've heard wonderful case studies, wonderful examples of how companies grow, but more importantly, manage their growth by having a robust customer conversation. On that note, it's time to wrap up this first in a series of Mint CX conversations. I'd like to thank all the panelists for sharing their thoughts and experiences on today's topic. But these conversations around CX will continue and culminate into a grand meeting of the minds with industry leaders at the Mint India CX Summit. So keep tuning in to Mint for more lessons in customer excellence from the best in the business. Meanwhile, this is Gautam Srinivasan signing off. Have a great day, everyone.